Hey everybody, R. Felix Finch here, and we've got nothing better to do right now. We're on quarantine. We're all kind of locked inside. So you see me here alone in my apartment at the moment. But you know what? I am not here alone because I am joined by the one, the only ECW and AEW and any other independent W that pays him's own, Colin Delaney. Colin, welcome.
What's up? We have the same colored walls, so it is a reasonable bet that we are in the same residence.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, we're at least in the same city. Like, spoiler alert, that's how I even got this interview, because Colin's a friend, one of the first people to actually help me out when I got here to Rochester, and he's being a good brother, as they say, and I appreciate that.
In my Zoom box, I'm up in the top corner, and the walls just all blend together.
Yeah, so Colin, you have not used Zoom at all?
No, I downloaded Zoom when quarantine started because everyone was saying, Zoom, we're all going to talk over Zoom. This is the first time I've used Zoom.
Oh man. Well, has nobody reached out for an interview with you? I mean, you've got to be somewhere on the list. I mean, when this happened, AEW was about to come to Rochester.
True. So I've done like Instagram Live. I've done like me and my friends chat on House Party. I've done just traditional like phone podcast stuff, but I have not. Nobody has used the Zoom. Oh, I used the Squadcast. Somebody used. So I've done things. I just haven't had to use the Zoom yet.
Fun. So, man, what was lined up for you before this? Like, the quarantine's disrupted everybody. What was supposed to be happening about now?
About now,
or until now, because I mean, in the time AEW was supposed to hit Rochester, WrestleMania weekend was supposed to be here. I'm sure you have some independent shows lined up. So, what's been the damage so far?
Sure. I mean, it's probably not as bad for me as it has been for some. But yeah, AEW was going to be in Rochester that Wednesday, and I was going to be going down to that. And then within a couple weeks, WrestleMania week was here. Had a big match at AEW down in Tampa. Was going to be there the whole week. Had a sweet karaoke jamboree lined up. Had some other fun things going on. I mean, I don't know. I honestly, I couldn't tell you what day of the week it even is now or what day of the month it is. So I'm not sure how many weeks we lost. I mean, yeah, the AIW show Mania week wasn't the only AIW show we've already missed. We've already missed another one. Man, yeah, that's not it. There's been a ton of things that have had to cancel, and it sucks.
Ah, man, yeah, with the Mania, the karaoke, hold on. You said you had a karaoke booking? Is this the most unusual booking you've had?
No, impossible. I don't know what the most unusual booking. I worked at the Gathering of the Juggalos one year. That's probably the most bizarre booking.
Which has been canceled.
It has been canceled. ICP being super responsible. Look at them.
They refused to risk one Juggalo life.
Yeah, hell yeah. Good for them. No, I was booked for a karaoke tournament with a bunch of good folks. Marco Stunt was going to be in it. Shug D, Gymnasty Boys, all sorts of people.
Not gonna lie, Shug D sounds like he'd be an absolute blast to hang out with, and because I've hung out with Marco Stunt, and Marco Stunt's a joy. It's like what's even better is going out drinking with Marco Stunt because everybody at the bar notices him.
Well, apparently they both can really sing too. So I didn't want any piece of that, but I was going to do my best. I was coming to win.
What's your go-to karaoke songs, man?
So I still throw out I Believe I Can Fly because I can crush it. I don't care what R. Kelly did. That's not true, but you know what I'm saying. Art versus artist, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you got to separate the art from the artist. And while he did do terrible, awful things, I Believe I Can Fly is a hell of a song. Roses by Outkast is a jam of mine. I have a lane that I stick to, and it's like 90s, 2000s R&B.
And also, apparently, anybody that's a photo negative of yourself.
What?
Just saying, I don't hear a lot of white boy music in there.
I mean, it's 90. Like I just said, 90s, 2000s R&B. It's my lane. Some Boys to Men, some All for One.
I
112.
Are you even hitting that Brian McKnight in there?
Oh yeah, back at one can hit the rotation.
Nice. This is interesting. Hold on a second. Did something happen there? Okay, I'm still streaming. For some reason, it popped up. For some reason, a different window popped up on my thing, and I'm like, why are we interrupted? So, sorry about that. I know how unprofessional me, but yeah, no, I think my go-to, oddly enough, my go-to songs are like Clint Eastwood by Gorillaz, Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind, and
okay,
man, I would say Kiss from a Rose, but that's just like that. I just want to say my power, my pleasure, my pain, like as emotionally as possible.
Well, I think it was Dreamer who one time said to me that there's only two reasons to do karaoke. One, because you can actually sing, or two, to pop the crowd.
Yeah, that's would those also be the two reasons to wrestle? Because you can either wrestle or you can pop the crowd?
Probably, yeah. Me and him were at a bar one time, and I sang "I Believe I Can Fly," and then he told me that he said there's only two reasons why you do karaoke: either one, you can really sing, or two, to pop the crowd. Next, his name gets called up, and Enter Sandman hits. Place goes nuts.
Man, he knew his audience, didn't he?
I'm telling you.
Now, is this like one of those weird WWE road trips, or is this when you and Tommy met back up on the Indies?
No, this is a random indie show. Like after ECW, I would get booked on a lot of those, like, oh, hey, we're booking a bunch of ECW guys shows. So this was one of those, and Tommy was on it, and Danny Doring, and Guido. That might be it.
Now you bring up the ECW, like they were booking ECW guys on the show, and that was always kind of a weird thing. Like I know what the storyline was, but how did the ECW originals feel about you, New Blood? Like, have they been pretty cool about it?
Most guys were pretty cool. It was weird when I would do shows that were exclusively that. Like I did a couple shows where it was like a, hardcore reunion, and then here's Colin Delaney. I feel like some of those like older guys gave me a little bit of the side eye, but most of the guys I've worked with one place or another at some point, so it wasn't really that big a deal.
Yeah. So how did you get up there? Because I think we've talked about this once, but that's just a very interesting story to me about you ending up in ECW as a regular. Because if we look at who was in that sort of era time frame, you are an outlier, probably not for the best reasons.
Sure. I got there. I've said it a bunch. I got there basically by accident. They needed a smaller guy to get beat up by Shelton Benjamin. And that doesn't mean that they were looking for a guy my size. They just wanted somebody smaller because that night the extras were Brody Lee, Corey Graves, Michael Tarver, Pepper Parks. So all like bigger guys, and they wanted somebody smaller to get beat up by Shelton. So Brody called me and asked if I was around, and I was, and I came down to the building, and I think it was when they kind of saw how small that I actually was that things kind of started rolling in somebody's head to do this thing. And I went out there and I got beat up by Shelton, and apparently, as the story goes, like the referee and stuff in the headset could hear Vince McMahon being like, who is this kid? That's how you do it. That's how you bump. Who is this kid? And so, yeah, I got out of the ring, and everybody was super thankful. Everybody was shaking my hand and telling me what a great job I did. And I got to the end of the tunnel, and Johnny Ace was there, and he was like, "Hey, kid, come take a walk with me." And basically laid out that they were giving me $1,000 bonus and asked if I could come to TV next week. And I was like, sure, yeah. And in my head, he's like, "It's in North Carolina," or something like that. And I was like, "Yeah, totally, I can do that." And in my head, I'm thinking like, "Oh, I got this. I'll hop in my car now and head to North Carolina tomorrow." And then I walk into a room, and he's like, "Set the kid up with a flight, a hotel, and a rental car." And I was like, I just got paid $1,000 as a $1,000 bonus, so $1,000 on top of the money I was already making for it, and then got a flight and a rental car and a hotel. It was the most money I'd ever made for anything in my life. I had just turned 21 at the time, you know.
No, that's pretty awesome, and I appreciate you throwing in the McMahon impression there. But
I got a McMahon and a Johnny Ace in one story.
Yeah. Now I am a little upset at you over one thing here, though. You talk about how small you are, and I've stood next to you on several occasions, and I'm about your size. Like, we are about equivalent. I think I might even be a hair shorter. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm closing in on 5'10". I'm 5'9" and change. And at the time, though, I weighed 145 pounds, maybe 145 pounds. I probably was maybe touching 150 on a good day.
Man, that is mind blowing to me. Especially because you're a small guy getting beaten by Shelton Benjamin, and Shelton Benjamin isn't somebody you think of as a big guy.
Correct. Yeah, but I mean, Shelton's also not small. I guess he was smaller by WWE standards, but he's still like 6'3", like, you know?
Yeah, no, one that always catches me off guard with that one is because my first time backstage at WWE was No Mercy and Raw Family Reunion, basically. No Mercy, where MVP debuted, and the Raw after that, which was like a Raw Family Reunion, where they famously did the Vince Loves Cock thing. But the weird thing was, when I was backstage, Jonathan Coachman is way taller than I would give him credit for.
I did not think you were going to go Coach.
Well, also Edge. Edge is someone I never thought of as a tall dude until I'm just like standing next to him.
Well, I mean, we talk about how I was a small dude then, but then you think about back, like the original of all this would have been 1-2-3 Kid, and if you ever stood next to 1-2-3 Kid, he's huge. The man's like 6'1", 6'2". He's a big guy. But back then he was small.
Yeah, it blows my mind just of how things have changed. Also, because like, you know, you and I are in our early 30s now, getting to mid 30s. Back in the day, we would have been old men.
And yeah, that's true too. I was talking to somebody about that the other day. They were talking about like, John Tenta, when he had his run as Golga, you know, that was like the end of his career. That was like tail end. He had already done it all. He'd already been all the way around. And when he was Golga, he was like in his early 30s. He was like a super young guy.
Yeah, I saw that same thing where they were saying like John Tenta was like 27 when he was like feuding with Hogan, or when he like crushed Hogan's ribs or something. And I'm like, that man never looks 27.
Right, and like the Nasty Boys, I think the Nasty Boys on their last run in like WCW, like their end run, I don't even think they were touching 30 yet, or something crazy like that.
Man, that is a hard life. That was a hard road life.
It's just different. It's just different now. I mean, I remember when I was when I got to WWE, they were not hiring anybody over 30. That was like a rule of thumb. They were not hiring anybody over 30. And then all those walls came crumbling down. It's just guys guys live differently now. They, you know, like, I don't know. Guys aren't hitting their stride until their early 30s. Like, people start training a little bit older and older, and a lot of guys don't even get a handle on pro wrestling until they're at least 10 years in, which puts most guys in their late 20s, early 30s when they finally start to kind of get it and hit their stride.
No, I absolutely agree because I look at just the person and wrestler I was in 2006, 2007 when I was first getting in, and I look now and I'm like, wow, look at all that time I wasted doing the absolute wrong bullshit, and it took that time to learn what the absolute wrong bullshit was, and I'm still learning for the most part.
Yeah, when I did AEW earlier this year, I was sitting down with Jerry Lynn, and he mentioned how at one point he was probably about 10 years in, and he was just sitting in a locker room, and it just kind of clicked. He just went, oh my God, that's what this is all about. That's like everything I thought I knew is kind of not what it is, you know? And I kind of remember having that a moment like that too, where you just kind of, it just kind of hits you.
Yeah, man, it is weird. So you've actually kind of seen the evolution of when you were getting in and when I was getting in. MySpace was the way you got bookings, was the way you networked, and it was super brand new. And now, like, you can talk, like, you can find just random people on Twitter, Snapchat, even TikTok. Like, the evolution of social media, how has that changed things for you?
Oh, I hate it. I I hate it. I'm generally bad at social media. It doesn't totally make sense to me. I don't like. I feel like a lot of social media, especially as a wrestler, is kind of pandering, and I feel uncomfortable with it. So maybe if I didn't feel as uncomfortable, I'd be better at it. But when I first started, I was hopping in a car with people going to shows and handing my VHS tape with my information on it to promoters.
Oh man, VHS. It's funny because in the same way, I was in the Navy, so I had a lot of expendable income. So I had a mini DVD recorder like this. Like remember those cameras that shot. Now that I look at it, it was like 480p, like small DVDs. But I could shoot those in my matches. I could try to edit them together somehow and just hand them to a promoter. It's like, hey, look, here's 15 minutes of me working.
No, yeah, me and my old tag team partner Jimmy, we would, set two VCRs up and make a little highlight reel, couple matches of ours, and we would travel to shows and we would hand a VHS tape with our information, like our email address, our phone numbers, all that stuff on
it. It is so mind blowing. Jimmy, by the way, Jimmy Olsen, you mean, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you came in as his kayfabe brother or cousin?
Brother. We were twins essentially. Me and Jimmy are the same age. I'm actually a month older than him, but Jimmy started wrestling at like 14. So by the time I started training at 16, he had already kind of like started traveling a bit and been on shows, and they kind of just started training me as Jimmy's tag team partner, So I was bred to be his tag team partner from day one. That's like how I was trained. I was trained to be Jimmy's partner.
Oh, so was this a play on the Olsen twins itself?
Yeah, so as wrestling nicknames in the training facilities go, somebody just, because I think he was just a young kid, somebody just joked and called him Jimmy Olsen, and it just kind of stuck. And so everyone just kind of started calling him Jimmy Olsen. So when I was training up, they were like, yeah, you'll be his partner, and you can just be Colin Olsen, and you guys can be the Olsen twins. The road itself, I guess.
This is a weird business.
Yeah, but I'm sure you have a good nickname from your training school that has like a stupid reason.
If you want to hear the story, actually, the way I became Frisco Flame is sort of in that sort of vein, because nothing was working out. I think the funniest stupid gimmick they tried with me is have me coming out with a speak and spell and dressed like as a total nerd, where I was. Well, initially they wanted me to be like a member of its tag team, the Spanish Armada, and then they quickly realized I'm just brown. I don't speak Spanish.
Right.
So because they
But
wanted
how
to
does
mess.
Frisco Flame come?
So I was trying to do this rock god thing. It wasn't working. I was trying. I went. They had me go to the show like in the middle of nowhere, Virginia. It's called a place called Floyd. That's how nowhere it is. And I'm there in my pleather pants, this vinyl vest, bleach blonde spiked hair because I was in the Navy. So to like hide the fact I was military, on the weekends I would bleach my hair blonde so that nobody could tell. And I just re-dye it on the Mondays. That was terrible for my hair, but it worked. I do all this, and this one guy hands me a collar, and he's like, "Hey, he's like, here, throw this on." I throw on the collar, and everyone starts laughing. Like, dude, you look like such a appropriate 2000s word for homosexual.
Right.
And this vet grabs me. He goes, one of my trainers. He goes, "Hey, you know what? That's what we're gonna do. You're from San Francisco, right?" And he's like, and I'm like, "No, Sacramento." He's like, "Close enough." So they were just all calling me San Francisco, San Francisco. So I became the San Francisco Treat Chris James, which then moved into the Frisco Flame Chris James for alliteration, and then just Frisco Flame because nobody cares about the real name after the moniker.
No, nobody cares. I mean, the WWE evolution, eventually you would just be Frisco.
Very true. Or if almost any promoter I've ever worked with, Francisco, because they add extra letters for some reason.
Their typewriter had enough ink.
Amazingly. So, with that, so you just worked this northern New York loop, or Pennsylvania, or Ohio. I'm not familiar with this territory like it. I know about the New York loop that everyone thinks of over in New England.
Right.
But what's up here? What was this territory like growing up?
This territory was actually great. The Rochester area was really good because there was basically 5 of us who came up kind of all together around the same time, which was me, Jimmy, Brody, Cloudy, and Cheech, and we were the Upstate 5. So we would always travel together. Cloudy and Cheech live in Rochester now, but they at the time were living in Albany. That's where they're from. They're Tony DeVito trained guys. But them and us were like the young guys coming up through Rochester. So we would do Rochester, we'd do Buffalo, we'd go out to Boston, we'd go down to Philly, we'd go to Pittsburgh, we'd go to Cleveland, we'd go to Jersey. And it wasn't, we go to Canada, we go to Toronto. But nothing was like very far from Rochester. So like, Boston's like 6 hours, Cleveland's 4, Philly's like 5, Pittsburgh's like 4.5, Toronto's 3. So there was like a decent amount of cities that you could hit within 6 hours. So that would be kind of the general loops we would run.
Okay, Canada though. Did you get a chance to do any kind of training up there in Canada, or was it just stop by for shows?
No, when we were coming up, I was real young, and we got a part of this promotion called UWA Hardcore, which was kind of like the thing in Toronto, and one of those early like a who's who was there. They had Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin, Sanjay Dutt. They'd fly the Ultimo Dragon over. Like M-Dog 20, Josh Prohibition. All these dudes worked out of UWA Hardcore back in 06, 07. So going to Canada was like one of my favorite places to go back when I was first starting out.
Okay, so sorry, you just looked down. I didn't know if you dropped something in your lap.
Nah.
Just hydrating quarantine style.
Yeah, I'm trying to get down a gallon of water every day. I've made quarantine rules for myself that I have to kind of stick to. and the gallon of water has to get down before any beer or alcohol can be consumed.
Now that is interesting. So with quarantine rules, what is your goal for this quarantine, and what steps are you taking to reach those?
So I'm trying to stay in the best shape I can. Not having a gym is tough. I have a rowing machine in my basement, so I have to use the rowing machine every day. And I'm also, because I can't go to the gym, so I'm trying to work on other things to keep myself good. I'm trying to work on my core strength, strengthening my knees, and working on flexibility in my hips and lower back, which are all things that have been problems for me forever. So quarantine is a good time to work on those. I mean, I might come out of this quarantine looking like trash, but I'll probably be feeling the best I've ever felt in my entire life.
Have you tried making the DDPY your own?
No. I think I'm like a point of unflexible that even DDP can't help right now. So maybe in like a month's time, once I get through my current regimen of stretching and exercising, where DDPY can become a thing for me. But no, I've always had problems with like my hips and lower back and not being flexible. So, and, I reach out to friends and friends who are in like much better shape than me and get advice and tips on things I can do while in the house to, stay active and stay limber and try to correct some of the wear and tear I put on my body.
I mean, come on, man, though. Where can you possibly find a wrestler that like understands knee and back problems? I mean, they're just so rare.
Well, it's not about finding some that understand it. It's finding some that know like good ways to fix it. Finding guys who have like a good grasp on like general like fitness, not even general fitness, but even a deeper knowledge of that kind of stuff, who can steer me in a direction.
I don't want to see sorry, I'm just kind of laughing at that in general, just because so many people I've noticed it's like, oh, smoke weed, that's their remedy.
Nah, I don't smoke. I've never been a smoker, so I have to actually stretch, apparently. Apparently smokers don't need to.
Yeah, so like I said, you said you were going to be heading to the AEW that was coming up, and AEW is where people saw you again, and this was right after you kind of re-debuted for WWE on SmackDown and 205 Live. So, what's it been like working between the two companies that fairly recently and fairly close together?
Interesting. WWE, it was almost exactly 10 years between me debuting for WWE in 2008 and then me appearing on SmackDown in 2018. And then, so it was cool. It was interesting. It seemed like maybe something was going to happen again. They were very interested, and then it just kind of fell apart, which is always discouraging and disheartening. And then AEW pops up and comes around, and I know a lot of people there. I have a lot of friends there.
Should we say some of your best friends?
Yeah. It is a whole different animal over there. It's weird because it has this kind of similar WWE feel when you show up and you arrive at the building, because it's a big arena show. So, there's signs that tell you which way catering is and where the producer's room is and, different things like that. And, so you're in that mindset, but then it's so much more laid back, and it's so much more of all these guys are just excited and want to work together to make the product good and cool, and they're like excited about it, which is something you don't get at WWE. So it's like a cool, fun atmosphere.
I mean, it's at least good to have that atmosphere. It is weird because at least I think it might just be the number of people I know in WWE versus the amount of people I know in AEW, where AEW still does kind of have that indie show sort of feel to me whenever I'm interacting with anybody involved with that.
Because some of the best indie promotions in the world have that kind of same mindset. You have a locker room of guys who's all working towards a common goal. You know, the best indie promotions have that locker room where everybody's going out there trying to make the show the best they can, as opposed to, you know, some shows have a lot of great talent on them, but that talent's going out there and doing what it wants to do, you know, as opposed to what would make the show best, which is what AEW seems to have.
Yeah, only time will tell. It's been a little weird. Like right now, like what's your thoughts on wrestling in the current pandemic, or how wrestling shows are handling the current kind of unavoidable yet unspeakable situation?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess only time is going to tell. I think WWE is doing what they can. Some of the stuff they did with WrestleMania was really smart and fun, and other stuff on there was just tough to watch. And I think you're going to get a lot of that. I think AEW's been doing a good job every week with TV, and I think I don't know when indie shows are going to come back, and it's scary to really think about when you look at all these things and read all these reports about, you know, large gatherings not being a thing in 2020 at all. So I can see when the restrictions loosen over the next couple months, I can see some things popping back up. But then I think those things are going to get shut right back down once weather turns cold again, because we're going to be right back in this situation unless there's a vaccine that's found, or unless there's, you know, some kind of antibody testing they can do to clear you of, you know, the ability to get sick.
I know you're up here in New York, though in Rochester, Monroe County, we're significantly better off than like New York City proper. But have you currently had anybody close to you affected by this?
I mean, nobody in my like direct circle. I don't know if you saw that Lewis had it.
Oh yeah, you're right. I did.
Yeah,
I didn't see that they actually confirmed it was COVID. I know that his mom went to the hospital, and then he ended up in the hospital too.
Yeah, so both of his parents had it, and so did he. So and all three came out the other side and are doing okay now, and that's great, and I'm happy to hear that. But yeah, it's scary. It's the unknown. You don't know. I mean, I'm you know, healthy early 30-somethings human who isn't really scared of getting sick, but you know, you don't know how this thing would affect you. So at the same time, I don't want it.
Yeah, well, you know, I live with a doctor who has to deal with this kind of stuff every day, and that's one of the things is like even Cuomo has been saying, you know, there's a lot of young people being hospitalized over this. It's not a guarantee. Youth is not a guarantee you will be fine, because sure, while your survivability is better, that's still taking up hospital space and hospital resources. And then and
I don't want to go to the hospital for anything. I mean, I mean,
the birth of your children, maybe.
I have a better chance to survive than others, being of my age and healthy, but that doesn't mean that I'm looking to get this thing, and if I can avoid it, I'm going to avoid it.
Yeah, we actually have a question from the chat. It says, "If after, this is a really specific one, if after the pandemic, WWE called you and asked you for you to do a segment with the 24/7 title, would you take it?"
Sure. I mean, I don't rule out anything. I didn't have bad times in my recent occurrences with WWE. I got to wrestle Brody on TV, which was a super cool thing for me. Being as we came up together, we backyard wrestled together, and then that 205 live roster was awesome. Like a bunch of great dudes there. So working with them was a lot of fun. It was a shame that nothing really came of it and it didn't work out. But yeah, I mean, if an opportunity arose, for sure.
You mentioned backyard wrestling. So I have to ask about that. Come on, tell us a little about your backyard days, Colin. What was your character? What did you think? Where did you do this? And what is the dumbest thing you totally do not condone doing, but did in your own time?
So we wrestled in a park here in Rochester. It was like where the fence posts met, so we could have like 2 ropes in a corner. And we didn't do like stupid stuff. We didn't hit each other with glass or barbed wire or anything really that crazy. We were pretty safe. We were like storyline driven, stuff in the park. We weren't doing the backyard wrestling that you think of when you hear like backyard wrestling. Brody Lee was in my backyard fed. When he was probably 35 at the time, and I was like 12.
Did he just look 35? Or?
Nah, I just take digs at him any chance I get about being old.
Also, just a massive, massive human being. Just colossal.
The first time I ever met him, and this is a true story. No, not the first time I met him. First time I met him, he had like brush cut and he was like clean shaven. I think he just had some chin stuff. But then a couple weeks later, he resurfaced with magenta hair and 2 earrings.
Loops or studs? Are we talking hoops or studs?
I think we're talking hoops.
Oh. And no one made fun of him, did they?
No, the man's 6'7". What are you gonna do?
Yeah, that's
even back then. Even when he was like a thinner 6'7", he was still 6'7", and I was still 12.
And I was like, I noticed you can get away with a lot more wild stuff when you have the height advantage. On
yeah,
doorways.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like the guys I backyard with, they were all a bit older. Me and my brothers were like the younger guys who just kind of found them and started hanging around, but they were all like 5, 6, 7 years older than us. My buddy Tom actually just sent me a picture because I posted a picture on Instagram yesterday of me with my buddy Mookie, who works for AEW now. And he sent me a picture of us from the backyard days. And it is, it'll probably go up I'll probably put it up on Instagram later today.
Oh man, So you looking more like a child than you did in WWE.
Yeah, I was in this picture. I'm an actual child, and I'm wearing like a tiger hood.
Were you the Tiger King?
No, I was the Caribbean Sugar Cat. Yep.
Okay. All right, pal. The Caribbean Sugar Cat. Tell me all about it. What is a Caribbean Sugar Cat?
No idea. I had this old tiger hood that I found off like an old Halloween costume. And I put it on, and I'd eat a bunch of candy because I was a kid. I was an actual child. Nothing crazy to write home about here. Just it's pretty much lays out how it lays out.
That's funny. Cubics here wants to know what the best advice you have gotten from someone high up in the business was, and also who your favorite opponent is.
Oof, best advice, man. I don't know. That's a tough one. Years and years and years ago, like I'm talking when I was like 16, and I was on a show with Tracy Smothers. He said stretching is how he had lasted that long, and Tracy's still at it. Like when I was 16, he was like an older vet, and he told us that like stretching was the ultimate, like that's how he has been able to go as long as he can go. So I always took that to heart. I never go out to the ring without stretching. I always make sure I stretch a bunch before I wrestle. The other one, and this isn't given to me, but I love the advice of, if you can't tone it, tan it. And favorite opponents, yeah, you got it. It's built in.
For sure.
Favorite opponents all time. Man, I can't even. These are hard questions, and they shouldn't be hard. They should be pretty easy.
See, I was going to assume that Brody Lee was definitely one of them because of you guys coming up together.
Yeah, we haven't wrestled in a long time though. When I got to WWE, he wasn't there yet. He was still in the Indies, and then he went to WWE after I got back from the Indies. So we really didn't get to do a whole lot together since I was in WWE.
How weird was it that you got signed before him?
I mean, he was in the system basically. He was like, it was a matter of time for a guy like him. I was a Cinderella story, if you will. But I used to love wrestling Cloudy and Cheech. Now I team with Cheech. In recent times, always love wrestling the Philly Marino experience out in AIW. I don't know, man. Yeah. Philly Marino's been some fun ones recently. I'm mostly a tag team wrestler. Like I said, I was trained to be Jimmy's partner, and then now I'm Cheech's partner. Me and Cheech are to infinity and beyond. So I've spent most of my career as a tag wrestler. So mostly tag teams, I guess.
Have you had an opportunity to do darks or anything with your tag partner? With a tag partner?
No. Yeah, I thought when going to AEW that because me and Cheech went to AEW together, I thought that they were going to put us in a tag, and I was excited because we've worked with the Bucks a good handful of times, so thought maybe that would be a thing, but it turned out it was me and Sean Spears, which is still fun, and it's still a tag match, but it's not like what me and Cheech probably could have done.
Gotcha, and there's just that inherent chemistry. And is there any more? Is there a huge wrestling regret or missed opportunity you can think of that you've had? Because that's another question from Tra Martin Wynn here, just asking what your biggest regret is, or if there's a missed opportunity.
I don't really live with regrets. I mean, no. I mean, WWE played out the way it played out. There's nothing I could have done to change it. I don't see any part of that as a missed opportunity. I guess I could have done more to keep my stock up after it, but hindsight's kind of 2020. I was a 21-year-old kid. I wasn't ready for the WWE spotlight, let alone any kind of spotlight that would come along with it.
That is interesting to hear you say, because just hearing that you feel you weren't ready for it. What makes you say that? Was there any kind of instances or just?
I was probably, as we discussed earlier, you don't really have a full grasp or understanding of a lot when you're that young and that fresh. I was 4-ish years into wrestling when WWE happened. So I wouldn't say that I knew what to do or what I was supposed to do. I didn't really have a full grasp of it. And going to WWE, especially in this position I was in, I wouldn't say that I grew as a performer by doing what I did on WWE. I wouldn't say that I, came out the other side of it like this brand new, wow, look what he can do guy. So, yeah.
Okay. I know I'm taking up your time here, but
you're good.
It's I don't know. It's what do you got planned today? You gonna take an excursion to the couch? Maybe visit the den? See?
Yeah, no, I This is I'm almost through with my gallon of water. I'm on my last how many ounces? My last 12 ounces. I'm gonna go down and hit the rowing machine. I'm gonna watch some wrestling. Me and Chief started recording a podcast where we talk about tag teams. So we're gonna record that later today. We're talking about the Usos. So I'm gonna watch some more Uso matches. And that's really what my day's got planned.
I mean, that's great. The WWE Network's available for $9.99 a month.
I heard that it's on my television set.
Do you get any residuals from the network?
No, they. I think, and this is all speculation, but I think when the network rolled out, they sent guys just like payoff checks, like, here, don't talk to us about this thing, because usually on residual checks it'll tell you like exactly what you got paid for, like it's like itemized out on the thing.
Oh, that would be a nightmare.
What's that?
I'm just like, that would be an accounting nightmare.
I'm sure. But there was this one check that came in, and it's, years after I'd been released. But it was right around the same time the network dropped. And it just was like, I don't even remember how much. It was like a couple grand. And it just said like, it didn't say anything next to it for like a reason or what it was for. So I was like, is this them paying us off for the network? Is this like, hey, you're going to be all over this network thing. Shut up and take this money. And it probably is. And I'm cool with it.
Yeah, so is this podcast released or are you just working on it now?
No, it's released. The first 2 episodes are out. It's called Dreamwork because teamwork makes the dream work. We did our first episode was 2 weeks ago. We talked about the Dudleys. And then this past week, we talked about the Steiner brothers. And now this week, we're talking about the Usos.
Again, now, is this available on Spotify? Is this on YouTube?
Spotify, iTunes, anywhere you can get your podcast. Just look up Dreamwork.
Don't look up DreamWorks because that's a studio.
Correct. So when creating a Twitter and such, you got to be very careful. Yeah, Dreamwork. Me and Cheech, each week we pick a team and we like separate. We go watch some matches of them, and then we come back together and talk about, what we liked, what we didn't like, and what made the team so great. And then also discuss how we would beat that tag team.
Yeah, as a specialist, who are some of your favorite tag teams, and who are some of the tag teams you really have your eye on today?
I always liked like the smart tag teams. I always liked like the Brainbusters or like the Heavenly Bodies or like the real thinking man's teams, the teams that really made you think. And up and coming teams today, Bear Country are great. We had a really, really fun match with them a couple months back. I already said the Philly Marino Experience boys out of Cleveland. They are super talented, and if they stick together and stick it out as a team, because that's the thing about independent wrestling tag teams, I feel like their shelf life isn't that much because one will go away or they'll separate or they'll, you know what I'm saying? Like if things don't work out pretty quickly for an independent tag team, they start to kind of waver left and right. One will go do this, the other will go do that. Their promotion will break them up. Like that's such a quick like indie promotion thing to do. Oh, we don't know what to do with these guys. We're just going to break them up. But if a team like that sticks around and just stays at it and continues to be tag team guys, there's no telling.
Yeah, no, for sure. Bear Country you mentioned. I've seen a lot of them in Beyond Uncharted Territory. They are they are big, beefy boys that like to slap beef and big brawly boys too. And always enjoy watching them.
Sure, and they're athletic. They're big. They're athletic. Smart. They come out of like the Create a Pro Academy, so they're both very well trained and smart dudes.
Yeah. Oh, out of Create a Pro. Oh, so they're some of Brian's guys.
Yeah, Pat Buck, the Create a Pro system, which man nowadays has been pumping out guys left and right.
Yeah, and like Statlander, I think, is a product of that as well. MJF.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like they are a great school. Once my injuries healed, that's definitely one of the places I want to visit. I'm gonna take your advice and maybe head out to Buffalo a bit as well because
Yeah.
Simon Grimm also really recommended the Buffalo Boys.
Hey, the Grapplers Anonymous is a fun time.
Yeah. So what's next for Conley? What are you waiting to do once this once the world stops ending? What's the first thing you're gonna do?
Wrestle. I mean, I'm gonna wrestle. This is the longest I've been outside of a wrestling ring in 17 years. I started wrestling when I was 16 years old, and I've never been outside of a wrestling ring for more than a month, whether that be shows or training. Because I'm a guy who constantly trained and always was in the wrestling school working on things, even when I probably didn't. It's just always a thing that I like to do. So I legit haven't been outside of a ring for more than a month in 17 years. So I'm definitely itching to get back in. Until then, like I said, I'm working on the podcast with Cheech and just trying to find some other fun projects to do, keep my wrestling brain moving, and keep my face out there some way, shape, or form.
Gotcha. Well, if people want to see more of your face or more of your content, where can they find Colin Delaney?
Twitter at extremely cute. I post on there quite a bit. I got the name at extremely cute because I got on Twitter pretty early, so names like that were still available. Instagram at extremely Colin. That's basically it.
And you can find me, Frisco Flame, pretty much everywhere. R. Felix Finch. You're on my channel, so click that subscribe button if you're here. I'm going to try to grab some more interviews because I may or may not know a few people in the business from the past 13 years. Who knows? I certainly am looking forward to finding out. And I started a podcast as well, Underground Lucha Things, where I go through and I watch Lucha Underground because I never saw it before. I've got nothing better to do now. I'm going to go through and I'm going to review it. It's going to come out every Wednesday and Friday. Debut episode tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern. Anyway, Colin, I'd like to thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day to come through. And look forward to seeing you once this quarantine's over. We'll go get a bev after you have another gallon of water.
Yeah, brother, let's do it.
All right. Peace out, party peoples. I'm going to end the stream, so bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
See ya.
See ya. Peace. Oh, wait, that's flipping off the British people.